Hi everyone, and welcome back to Inside Archaeology, the channel giving you a sneak peek inside history's mysteries and the lives of the people who investigate them. Today's video is the collaboration you've all been waiting for, as I have an Ask an Archaeologist interview featuring Dig It with Raven. We talk not only about her career journey and why she decided to get 2 master's degrees, but also about why she started a YouTube channel, her new book, The Other Ancient Civilizations, as well as where she would visit if she had a time machine. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe or like to help support both our channels and tell the algorithm to promote them to new viewers. Thank you in advance for taking the time to even watch a few minutes of this video. Without further ado, let's dig into the interview. Okay, Raven, welcome to the channel. It's so lovely to have you here.
Thanks so much for having me. It's amazing that we're finally doing this
I
after
know.
this many years. Yeah.
Yeah, in case anybody doesn't know, Raven and I actually went to the same university, did the same degree, but I think we're about 4 years, 2 or 4 years apart.
Something like that. I only did 2 years at Laurier.
But I think you didn't go to Jordan when I did, so our paths like didn't quite cross. And obviously we wouldn't have had classes together because I was slightly ahead of you.
Yeah,
So,
I think I had a few classes with like people in your grade for like the Nabatean stuff.
we'll jump right into our first question, which is what inspired you to study archaeology?
I am that very stereotypical nerdy kid who was obsessed with Bellerophon and Pegasus and Greek myths and ancient Egypt from the age of 3. So I think I knew the word archaeologist before I knew like basic words. One of those things. I was always going to the library and getting out books of like the pyramids and all the like ancient Greek stories. And so I think it's just always been this lifelong like just passion of mine. I was an only child
Mm,
who had nothing better to do but to read books about Greek heroes and ancient pharaohs.
I mean, same. So, as you said, you started off at Laurier and then you transferred to U of T and then you ended up in the UK studying for a master's degree. What was the focus of your master's and what kind of brought you from Canada to the UK?
So the journey from Canada to the UK was a wild one. Took a few years. So finished at U of T, worked at a museum for 2 years in Toronto, ended up moving to Germany to do an internship to start a master's eventually in art conservation restoration.
Mm.
From there, I was like, Germany's not my bag, not my vibe. So then I moved to Amsterdam and then did a master's there in restoration and of cultural heritage, focusing on archaeological materials. And then after 3 years in Amsterdam, I was like, you know what, Amsterdam's also not my bag. And then like in the middle of the pandemic, I was like, well, I need to use the EU passport however I can before Brexit. Moved
Mm-hmm.
over to London, did a master's because I was another one. Don't do that. That was very stupid. And did that in the archaeology and heritage of Egypt and the Middle East.
What was your thesis topic for that one?
So that one is my plastered skulls, my skull babies, that I'm sure anyone who's seen me on Instagram knows that I'm obsessed with.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the pre-plastered Neolithic skulls from the Southwest Asia area, so about 8,000 BC. And there's a few that were found, they were first found in Jericho in the 1950s. And I think they're absolutely stunning. Everyone else who looks at them thinks they're really creepy. So we just agree to disagree on that. They are my babies. I guess you've been to Jordan, so you've probably seen them.
Oh yeah. Yep. Now I
Yeah.
know what the ones that you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think they're creepy?
I don't know because they're like they're a skull and I'm an archaeologist. So I think that I'm somewhere in the middle. I can't quite see like I wouldn't say that they're like cute, but I wouldn't necessarily say that they're super creepy.
Okay, well, yeah, that's fair. When I saw them in January for the first time, I think I like waved at them. I almost cried. I was like, "It's my babies. They were so beautiful." And I was that person at the museum. But I do adore them, and everyone just thinks that they're ancestor worship because they were replastered to look like a human face.
Mhm.
And I think they might have been used as something different, but I will hopefully maybe one day turn that into a PhD, and I still have
Mm.
on a wall in the other room of just my skulls
Mhm.
just beckoning me to keep researching it.
I mean, that's cute that you call them your babies. I mean, like I said, I'm an archaeologist, so, like, I've been on sites before and people find bodies and they're like, "Ugh," and I'm like, "Skellies!" And we have like, I get way too excited about dead people, so it's
Yeah,
fine.
I realize, like, yeah, in the wrong context, people just look at you like, "Are you okay?" Um,
So you've finished 2 masters now, which is a pretty impressive feat for all that you say, "Don't do that." What are you doing right now then?
so currently, I work at the Natural History Museum, not doing archaeology. I have a
Mm.
very techy job doing product management.
And how did you come into that job then from an archaeology background?
It was started off as desperation,
Mm.
as we all get. Well, it was after I graduated. I was working at a bar trying to figure out what I could do, and you know how it is with heritage. They're always like, "Oh, you're really qualified, but you don't really have heritage experience. So, maybe if you get some of that, we can hire
Mm.
you." Well, and then it's that whole cycle of how do you get heritage experience if you can't get into the heritage sector?
Yeah.
And then, so I started looking around because I had all these YouTube skills, editing, social media, marketing, product management, project management, not to mention like all the other jobs that you pick up along the way while doing school
Mhm.
thing. And just trying to think like, well, I need something that's not working at a bar. Just, I really loved working at the bar, but I was tired. I was getting old. And so I sort of fell into a job at a data science startup where they teach data science. It's like an online platform to learn data analytics and data
Mhm.
science and things that I had known nothing about.
Mm.
And I don't know why they hired me. I am forever grateful for them to doing that, but it was like a really crazy thing. I ended up creating like this whole online platform for them with videos, so that obviously helped with the YouTube stuff. And
Mhm.
from there, the Natural History Museum was recruiting for a digital content manager for a new project on subscription.
Ah.
Yes, and that was perfect because it was sort of like everything that I was learning at the data science company, plus everything that I had sort of just like built up naturally with YouTube. And it was definitely more in the right direction with heritage. I wouldn't have gotten that job, I will say, without sort of diverging a little bit and getting
Mhm.
experience at the data science job. So, really a big fan of kind of just like going out and doing something different to just, figuring out what you like, what you don't like, what you maybe are good at.
Mhm.
And then from there, I stepped up into the product manager role so that way I could sort of take charge and bring out a new product, which we have, which is sort of like, like Masterclass or BBC Maestro.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We have that, but for natural history,
Hmm.
which is really fun. We had gotten all our scientists to make their own master class essentially on whatever they want. We have a really great one on like queer animals, like little gay natural history, which is really cool. We have one on we just put one on sharks, and like we dissected a shark from the collection and we're using the collection. It's really fun. And so that was
Mhm.
like a really exciting opportunity that just kind of yeah came online at the right time, I guess.
Well, that's great. I mean, kudos to you for making it work. You've mentioned obviously your YouTube channel, and I would hope that most people here watching would recognize you from Dig It with Raven, which is your wildly successful YouTube channel that you also have. Can you tell us a bit more about why you decided to start doing it?
I feel like you might have started yours for a similar reason where you just kind of like wanted to make the videos that maybe you wanted as a
Mhm.
undergrad. When I moved to Germany, I had no friends. I didn't speak the language. Didn't really, I was fresh from a breakup as well. Like my ex was supposed
Mm.
to move to Germany with me, and my cousin he and I are like the big history nerds in the family. And he was like, just start a YouTube channel. Just do something with your time. And I was like, what do you mean? Like YouTube? Me on I don't know. And then
Yeah.
you sit down for a minute and you go, okay, actually I could do this. There was no YouTube videos on anything that we were learning. So that was my main impetus of like I had my archaeology 101 textbook. I don't know why I brought that with me in Germany. As we went through my Colin and my Renfu and Von, and decided that that's what I was going to do. And I spent a whole year like making a website and blog posts and videos, and then finally uploaded it just before I moved to Amsterdam. And that's sort of how it started. And I wanted to also do conservation at the same time. So it was a weird mix at the beginning, and
Mhm.
it was a lot. And I had a really crappy fisheye camera, and I was in my what I called my murder bedroom in Hamburg. It was this terrible student housing with a owl shower curtain for a window for the window, and there were like brown patches on the carpet,
Ugh.
which we don't know if they were blood or not. And so
Mm.
I kept buying rugs from IKEA to cover them. And I had no friends and nothing to do, so I just made YouTube videos in my murder room, and it was, a fun little experience for then. And since then I have a real camera now. I have lights, I have a microphone, so it's
Mm.
all, come a long way.
We've talked about your work, we've talked about YouTube. Now I want to talk a little bit about your latest addition to your list of many things that you do, which is a published author. So anybody who, again, you should know this if you're watching this video, you are definitely already a fan of Raven. You released your first book this fall, The Other Ancient Civilizations, which is on my bookshelf. Can you tell us a bit more about the book, and also like what prompted you to start writing it?
So I had the privilege of someone actually approaching me to write the book. And you always think about writing a book,
Mm.
but you never really like, maybe one day, whatever. And then, yeah, just by chance, a publisher reached out to me, and they just asked if I had ever been interested in writing a book. So I sat down and I thought, well, could I? Like, sure, maybe. Why
Mhm.
not? Here we
Mhm.
go. I just kind of brainstormed a few ideas, and I realized, especially with YouTube, like reflecting on how the journey has been on, like, and what I love highlighting and bringing to people's attention. And especially when I was living in Amsterdam and I was doing the red light district tours, which were my favorite tours to do, and just changing people's perspectives about areas and history, and making you think a little bit deeper, giving you a jumping off point into delving into something that you're not so familiar with, or that you might not have ever heard of before. And that's sort of where the inspiration for the book came from. As an archaeologist, like we always know of the lesser known ones just from the way that we study and what we're exposed to. So we all know the Minoans and the Etruscans and the
Mhm.
Nabateans, but if you bring up the Nabateans to anyone,
Mhm.
the average person isn't going to know who they are. And they're so cool, and they definitely deserve more love and attention. Or everyone who's interested in ancient Egypt, that's great. But a lot of people don't know about the Nubians.
Mhm.
And and then I ended up making a list of about 50. I just deep dove into, just I found lists of just every ancient archaeological culture and civilization, and I narrowed it down to 20. And the other thing I wanted to do is, I know from when I was interested before I started studying ancient history, a lot of these ancient history books are very Mediterranean focused.
Yeah.
You'll get maybe to like the Middle East, maybe to India, you'll maybe have one chapter on China. I wanted to cover as much of the world as possible, which in hindsight was a very silly idea because it was very difficult. I'm very glad now, in hindsight, like, looking at it now, looking at the final product, I'm very happy I did it. But when I was in the trenches with it, I was just pulling my hair out, because
Mm.
find sources for things, especially areas of study that you're not used to studying,
Mhm.
was very difficult. But the amount of new things that I learned was also really amazing, and so I was really happy about that bit. And so that's how the book kind of came to be, and goes through each of the 6 continents. I'm not counting Antarctica because there's nothing in Antarctica. But there is something in every continent, as evenly distributed as I could get for what was available to me time.
How did you find like the process of like finding your voice as an author? Because while it is a kind of academic ebook, it's not a textbook, but it's also not fiction. So how did you go about that? Or how did you struggle with that at all?
I guess this is where all of the years of YouTube really helped. It
Mm.
was, we have to do this all the time as science communicators, where we take very complicated topics and very, convoluted things with science and big jargon, and we have to find the nuance in it and be able to convey that in an engaging way to a generic audience, because if we can't, we don't get the views.
Mm-hmm.
And then having that, mixed with writing, I would say my latest dissertation, because I feel like UCL was very intense for writing.
Mm.
So that really helped, I think, just flesh out let's be a little bit more formal with it. So it was a nice little mesh between the 2. And I was able to my editor was really lovely, and they let me just kind of go crazy and do whatever I wanted. So I loved writing those little vignettes at the beginning of each chapter, little fiction sections, just to sort of help people with getting into the mindset of someone who might have lived in that culture at that time. So that was really a fun thing. And I think tour guiding also really helped with that, because that's all storytelling. That's, you're outside in the rain with me. In Amsterdam, it's always raining, because it was the free tours. So if you weren't interested, you could have just left. It's not like you were stuck there. So you have to make sure you're able to grab that audience and draw them in. So that was also quite helpful. So it's a lot of, as life experience brings you into funny places.
Last question for this kind of longer form section is, can you give us a hint of what's coming up for yourself or your channel in future?
More reaction videos are coming. I know everyone loves the reaction videos. And I really enjoy doing those, and finally finding like a solid set of people in London that want to come to my house and yell at movies with me. The book is getting reprinted in hardcover, so that's very exciting. I was like, it was a fun little surprise, actually. I just found out. Please pre-order the hardcover if you've not yet ordered the paperback. I don't know if there's going to be a book number 2, because I'm exhausted from book number 1.
But you have that list of 50.
I have that list. Volume 2 of the other one. And then I'll go back going, I can imagine myself signing on for that, and then going back and looking at them all going, there's a reason I cut this one. And not being able to find any sources. Just trying to plug away to get that 100K. Do you know how it is? Get the coveted plaque, the silver plaque. That would be a really fun thing, I guess, to have on the wall. And then from there, who knows? I guess it's just finding the joy in it again, because I had to take a year off when I was writing the book, because writing a book with a full-time job is a lot. Plus, if you had a YouTube channel, oh gosh, and you have a baby. I don't even know how you're doing it with a small child.
I mean, it's like going back to work after maternity leave is going to be an interesting thing to do.
So I think right now it's just me figuring out what videos I like to make again, and reconnecting with my community and just having fun with it. And I obviously want to get all of the other YouTubers on the channel to share the love and connect in the community in that way as well. We all sort of have just been like orbiting around each other for years. We're finally able to get in on it, and it was like that with Instagram for a while, but I want to do that with YouTube. I'd rather just like lift everybody up.
Yeah. There's enough space for everyone to do. If there's enough space for all the pseudoscience channels to do well, there's enough space for all the real archaeologists to do well.
Yes, that's it.
All right. So that's the end of our kind of first little section about yourself and your career. Now I'm going to ask some kind of shorter form questions. The first one is, what is your best and worst field experiences or stories?
My best one, I would probably make it Oman. You get to dig barefoot on the beach. Yeah.
I mean, I'd be I guess it depends on what tools you're using, but the health and safety person in me is like, your toes.
We were just troweling. It's literally just
Okay.
troweling and sieving and
Mm.
maybe some brushing. Like, it was very, very chill. It was on a turtle reserve. So in the mornings, sometimes you'd like find like baby turtles in your trench, or we'd find, hatch, and they don't really hatch at night, but sometimes they'd be hatching in the morning, and we'd run over with a bucket and try to save as many as we could and bring them into the water. And then
Aw.
of course you're watching that and you're really excited, but then you see the seagulls just go. A little
It's the
heartbreaking.
circle of life.
It really was. You're just standing there like, I think I made a difference. I don't know. But that was really beautiful. And it was also just like a very wholesome dig experience. There was no drama, which is unheard of. We did copper smelting. We did a lot of experimental archaeology as well. So that's my first into that. And it was literally just before the pandemic. It was January 2020. So I think maybe that also is why it holds something quite special, because it was like the last of that, but you're all like, sharing rooms and being weirdly close.
Mhm.
And then my worst one was just an experience where I feel like there was just a lot of miscommunication
Mhm.
and just maybe some poor organization. I think that was really the planner in me. As a product manager, I was just like, please, like, we need to have more just forward thinking and forward
Mhm.
planning, and we need to know what we're doing. And that was very stressful for me, I think. And I didn't like that. And it didn't make me feel comfortable on the site.
Mm.
Because when you don't have a plan and you're just kind of going, well, why am I here?
Mm.
So I think that was it. Like, everyone was lovely, and the site was amazing, and the people who work there full time are amazing. I think it was just a little bit of just the situation that we all found ourselves in, where we just needed to, um, you know, just more planning needed to be done, I think.
Yeah.
And I think there were some restrictions into how we could actually do the planning. So it was a lot of like red tape. So
Mhm.
I don't blame anyone for it. It was just a little bit uncomfy and stressful, and
Yeah.
could have gone better.
Next question is, what is your favorite thing that you've discovered or found while excavating?
Ooh, okay. Greece, 2019. Halos was the site. I was the only conservator within the team. There was this like section of really small, like really fine cattle bone. At least we thought it was cattle. I think it ended up being like horn.
Mhm.
And we tried to excavate it, and it was just not going to work. So
Mm.
we had to kind of block lift it or go under it. We brought in the conservators from the municipality, and they're like, we can come in 3 weeks. But we were like, well, you can't, we're not going to be here in 3 weeks. So I kind of had brought most of my conservation tools, because I was teaching the students during the lab afternoons. So I just kind of volunteered, said I could do that. And so for 3 days, I was hunched over this like little block that we had kind of dug all around for the last week and a half. And at one point, I just hit something on the side, and this big chunk of soil just kind of fell away. And inside of it was an oil lamp, a bunch of pots, a giant like iron fibulae, and little bits of bronze that had been like completely corroded. You could tell like it was farming land, so obviously it had been like worn away for a while, but you could tell this was like a
Mhm.
depth, like a whole cut with like a proper burial of something ritual, and freaked out. It was like the most exciting thing anyone had found
Mhm.
all season too. Like, people had finding coins, and I was like, "Grr, like I want one." But then
Mhm.
like the oil lamp that came out was amazing, and I like blacked out for a minute. And that scene from Gladiator at the end when his friend is like covering those little dolls that he had
Mhm.
of his family. That's how I was feeling. I just had that flashback, like, oh my god, someone did this, and then now I'm finding it, and then I freaked out. So that was I think my favorite find.
That's a great one. Second last question is, if you had a time machine, what era, civilization, or site would you visit?
That's such a hard one. And I know you sent the questions before, and I've been thinking about it for 2 days because I just can't decide. Middle Egypt, like 18th dynasty Egypt,
Mhm.
obviously. You have to see Hatshepsut and doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
That's a given. But after writing the book, I really want to go to the Marajoara in Brazil
Mhm.
because I had never heard about them until I wrote the book. And they lived on these mounds on Marajo Island in Brazil, which is like the size of the Netherlands, and it floods every year. Like it's always flooding. And so they got around on boats and they just lived on these mounds. Not everyone, but like, they
Mhm.
had these big mounds and they were huge. And then they were just like around. And I was like, oh, I want to see that.
Mm.
I would kill to see that. That'd be so cool. Another, like, I guess typical one, especially for both of us, just because of where we've dug and what we've studied, I would do the Nabateans,
Mm.
Petra in its glory.
Yeah. I mean, especially I think more so that makes so much sense as well, more so because they are so like unknown.
Mm,
Because like we don't really have any historical records of them written by them. They're all written by like outsiders, by Romans and
yeah,
Greeks. So it would be really cool to like see them in their natural habitat and actually like see how much of what's been written about them is true and stuff.
exactly. I want to sit in the rock cut little things, not the tomb
Mhm.
ones, but like the ones that look like tombs, but they're not.
Mhm.
And I just want to have some like Bedouin tea with them and just chat
Mm.
and ride a camel, watch
Mm.
them building everything because
Mhm.
it's astounding what they
Yeah.
did. And they were just like, yeah, we were nomads and now we're not. Oh, and okay, but we'll be nomads again. That's fine. And it
Yeah.
just went back and forth and it was great. And it just seems like such a interesting time in that part of the world.
And I call them like the ancient Amazon.com.ca or whatever, because they're the people that ferry all of the goods from
Mhm.
A to B. They were the trade empire. They were the Jeff Bezos of antiquity.
They really were. And I bet you they smelled amazing.
Yeah.
Just because of all the incense. Like I would go to Petra just to like take a good whiff, Yeah. This
That's
is
the one thing about recreating history that we've not quite unlocked yet is scent. That's the
yeah.
one sense that we've not, we can do recreations, we can do recreating music, all that kind of stuff, but recreating scent, that would be fun.
It would I wouldn't want to go to most places.
Yeah.
And but Petra, I would go.
Yeah.
I bet you it smelled fantastic. Just frankincense everywhere. So I guess those are my top 3.
Well, I mean, it's an excellent choices. And yes, definitely have a few of those in common with you. Last question is, what would you say to encourage or inspire other people to like follow in your footsteps?
I'd say just keep going. Um,
Mm.
because archaeology itself, it can really make you question a lot of things about yourself, I guess. It's a hard, area to get into. It's a hard field to thrive in. And I'm not working full time in archaeology, and it's
Mm.
something that I have to do now on the side. And I'm really fortunate to have the YouTube channel and the community and my research to sort of keep me involved. But it is one of those things that can be very disheartening at times, and it can break your heart because you're so passionate about this one thing, and the world just keeps telling you no around every corner. I would say if it's something that you really, really want to do, stick to it, but also know that it's not who you are. It's not your whole person.
Mhm.
Because that's, I think, is something that gets drilled into us a lot as students is you're not someone who studies archaeology. You're not someone whose job is an archaeologist. It's you are an archaeologist. This is your whole personality. This is,
Mhm.
who you are rather than just you are you first before you are an archaeologist. So I would say
Mhm.
that like always make sure you like stick to it if you really want to do it and you really love it, because no one's going to be able to do it the way you do it. But also remember to not lose yourself in it, because
Mhm.
that's I don't want to be like, that's how they get you, but it's just one of those things. It really can strain your mental health, and
Yeah.
you get to that point of who am I if I'm not this?
Hmm.
And you're still just as whole. You're still as much of an archaeologist, even if you're not working in one, as one, and you're not
Hmm.
have that title. If you, are still involved in it in any way.
That's great, great, great advice. So that kind of ties everything up today. So once again, thanks for coming on. It's been great chatting to you. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Thanks so much for having me. It was lovely.
Stay tuned, everyone, to see what further collabs we're going to have coming up.
Okay, that's everything for today. What part of the interview did you like the most? Do you have any questions for Raven? Have you gotten her book yet? If not, link is in the description. Don't forget to comment, like the video, and subscribe to both of our channels before you leave. Thank you so much for watching. Stay curious, and I hope to see you on my next adventure inside archaeology.